Hello and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to my Rover 25 GTI. This is the car that was sat in the corner of my barn for a couple of years, and well, I made a video about this car not that long ago, albeit probably be a few weeks ago now because it takes a while for these videos to come out on YouTube, but not that long ago did I make a video about this. If you haven't seen that video, I suggest you stop here, go back and watch that video because this video will make a lot more sense. Do come back to this one though. So this is my 2001 British Racing Green Rover 25 GTI, which I bought back in September 2020. I used it for a couple of months and then, well, I just parked it up and left it, I suppose. This is a proper hot hatch and a properly rare one at that. These were only made for a couple of years and they were a predecessor to the MG ZR. These are great little cars. As you'll know, if you've seen that previous video, that this car actually started, ran and drove out of the barn with very little effort. I am, and I continue to be so impressed with this little Rover, albeit it did conk out as I gave it that short little run up the private road here directly after starting it. It conked out because the battery, it turns out, was so dead that just flashing the lights was sufficient to cut the engine. Anyway, I've sorted that. For the time being, I've put a slightly oversized, actually, battery in this car, and that's cured the running issue. So, true to my word, in the last video, I said we put this car in for an MOT, and well, see how it gets on. So, let's do that in this video. And to be honest, I'm a little nervous. Now, I also said in that last video that I'd run a sponge over it, that I'd clean the interior because, well, it's a bit smelly in there, and I'd fix that headlining. And I said I'd do all of that before I took it for an MOT, but I've decided to do it the other way around. You see, I've got an MOT booked this afternoon. So I'm going to take this car down to the MOT station today and we'll see what happens. Could this be the end for my Rover 25 GTI, or could it be the beginning of its next chapter? I really hope that it's the latter. This could cost me a few quid, so you're watching this video, please like and please share this video. The more views, the better. Oh, and if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, then please do so because you get to see me fix up and keep on the road old Rovers and old Fords. Plus, you get to follow my car antics, such as seeing if I make it the 8 or so miles to the MOT station in this 25 GTI. Let's find out. Here it goes. Let's take this for an MOT. Fingers crossed, everyone. Okay, well, this car's running really nicely, which is a good thing, but I have noticed something. Yeah, definitely, it's definitely that. I'll tell you about that in a moment. First of all, being back in this car, well, being back in this car and trying not to breathe too much because there's a lot of mold in here, but being back in this car has reminded me of two things. One good and one not quite so good. So the first thing is that this is an R3 Rover with a working clock. Well, if you're familiar with R3 Rovers, then you'll know that having a working clock is, well, something of a miracle, really. And I'm super impressed that the clock still works in this one, having been laid up in the barn for all that time. The second thing that I've noticed, I think is not quite so good, I'd forgotten about this actually, is the speedometer isn't working. It's not recording miles per hour or any miles, I suppose. So that's something, if this car turns out to be MOT-able, that's certainly something that I'll need to take a look at. Now, onto the thing that I've noticed about this little car. And well, it's hardly surprising really, given the amount of time that it was laid up, sat there in the barn. And that is, whenever I take my foot off the accelerator, well, this car starts to lose speed fairly swiftly. In fact, the performance as I'm accelerating now, it's being restricted. This little 140 brake horsepower hot hatch should be going a lot better than this. And that tells me that we've probably got, well, a brake seizing on somewhere. Oh well, that's the first MOT fail that I've noticed, and I'm not even at the garage yet. For those of you watching from overseas, the MOT is the annual roadworthiness test here in the UK, and well, this one definitely needs new brakes. So I'm only a couple of miles now from the MOT station. I shall push on, and well, I'll see you on the other side of the MOT. Fingers crossed, everyone. I'm sat here in my Sierra XR 4x4 because I've got an update on the Rover 25 GTI, which has failed the MOT. But before we get to that, if you want to see this car, this Sierra XR 4x4 and me, well, we'll be at the Classic Restoration Show there at the NEC in March. So if you are at the show, you do want to come and say hello, please do come and find me. I'll be on the XR Owners Club stand. Anyway, back to the 25 GTI. And if I'm honest, well, I'm a little bit surprised. Look, I'm not surprised that the car failed the MOT. The 25 GTI has been sat in a barn for a couple of years. My goodness, it was always going to need some work. But my concern going into the MOT was, would the work required be so substantial that ultimately it would make it uneconomical to put the car back on the road? Well, to my surprise, the car needed a front brake caliper. We knew that on the way down. It needed a tyre, and that's it. There's an advisory for another tyre, which I'll have done, plus the battery is insecure, which again we knew about and which I'll address. Otherwise, the brake discs are a little corroded. Well, no surprise there. I'm certain they'll clean up as I drive the car, and the brake pipes require looking at. So guess what, everyone? That means that the 25 GTI is going back on the road. Now, I've got a second set of 25 GTI alloy wheels, so I've already had a couple of tyres put on those, and I've dropped them to the garage ready to be fitted to the car. So that means, well, in a few days, or a few seconds for you, I'll be driving my 25 GTI home with an MOT. Oh wow, this Rover 25 GTI drives so well. Well, particularly now with the new brake caliper, which was supplied and fitted by the chaps at Pulbathic Motor Services. A big thanks to them. But yeah, it's just performing so well. And I'm not afraid to throw this thing now into a few corners, thanks to the fresh tyres that are on this car. In fact, this car loves to corner. It corners so well. This little hot hatch may only be, what, a 142-ish brake horsepower, but different to modern hot hatches where you can use every single bit of that power. And these R3 Rover chassis are so good. They just suck up everything that you throw at them. They corner so well. This is a lively, spirited little hot hatch. And the driver enjoyment is helped massively by that lovely raspy exhaust note there out the back. In fact, you've really got to have the window down to enjoy this car to its full potential. As promised then, well, this Rover 25 deserves a decent clean inside and out. And I need to sort out this headlining, which really is sitting on my head. So I'll get to that in just a moment. I'll probably do a couple more miles yet. I've got this lovely winter road here and no one's on it. So I'm going to keep enjoying this car for a couple more miles, but stay tuned to see how this car turns out. It's looking so much better now. Wow. I know I've got a few cosmetic issues with this car, but I don't think it detracts from the fact that this is a very pretty car. Now, you'll be pleased to know that I didn't just stop at a decent clean. I also attended to that fallen headlining. And okay, it's not an OEM Rover factory finish, but it looks pretty good. It keeps the headlining off my head, and well, it'll do for now. I've also found the code for the stereo, which is working exactly as it should, and I've set that working clock. Jobs I still need to do on the car. I need to deal with that oversized battery that I fitted, so I'll get that sorted in the next couple of days. And another job is the speedo. You'll know from earlier in the video, the speedo has not been working. Well, guess what? This little hot hatch is so happy to be back on the road that miraculously it started working again, albeit it might be intermittent, so I'll keep an eye on that. I can only assume that it was something to do with this front wheel, because of course I had a new brake caliper fitted to this side. It must be something to do with that. I don't know. I'm just happy it's working, and as I say, I'll monitor it. The final job I need to give thought to, and that's whether I refit the original interior back into this car. If you watched the first video on this car, well, you'll know that I sourced an original orbital interior for this 25 GTI, which currently has an MGZR Monaco half leather interior in it. So that's something to think about. Now, I checked before I came out to film this bit of the video, and you know, there's only 34 of these Rover 25 GTIs left on the road. So by MOTing and taxing mine, well, I've increased that number by 1, which is what? About 3% of all of the 25 GTIs left in the UK. This is 3% of all of them. Now, that doesn't sound a great deal, but if you compare it to, let's say, the Ford Focus ST170, a hot hatch that was around the same sort of time as this, or I know they ran a little bit later, but around the same sort of time as this, well, there are 1,800 ST170s left in the UK. So 3%, about 54 cars. I mean, you couldn't park them in this space that I am now. And this is the equivalent of that number. Look, my point is, this is a properly rare little car. And in my opinion, well, this drives better than a Focus ST170. So why aren't people keeping these? And let's not fall out about which is the better looking car. But I do love this car's black grille. What now then for my Rover 25 GTI? Well, it's MOT'd, and as I said earlier, I've taxed it. So I'm going to drive it for the next month or so and enjoy this car. It's such a hoot to drive. But after that, it'll probably go back in the barn, and well, it's at risk of staying there for another 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. The problem I've got, you see, is that this car needs to be improved. I want to continue to improve it, but it sits in a queue of my cars with several cars ahead of it. I don't know when I'll get to this or if I'll ever get to improving this car. And that puts me into a bit of a quandary because I love it and I struggle to let these things go. But if there's someone out there who would enjoy this car and most importantly improve this car, well, please do get in touch. If you fancy owning a 25 GTI, the last Rover ever to wear a sporting badge, and it's a good one, it's really, really a good one, well, get in touch and let's have a chat and see if we can put a deal together. I don't want a great deal for the car. I want it to go to a good home. I will struggle to let it go though. It's a handsome thing after all. Look, thank you for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the 25 GTI or all of my Rovers or my cars. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, and well, subscribe if you haven't. That's really important. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now. Bye-bye.